you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, pal.
Cool. I haven't got too long today, so I'm just gonna get right into it. I really enjoy. I'm enjoying the show so far. I've not finished it just yet, but halfway through, so I'm
Okay.
still no
Have you
spoilers.
done episode 5 yet?
No, I've actually watched 4.
Oh,
That's the one. Is that the one to go?
5's my favourite.
I only took. It's because I'm not one of those people that likes to like
You
go.
want to eat it out?
I like to take my time, and I'm taking too long probably. But no, I'm really enjoying it. I mean, you're right. Such a
Take
brilliant.
6 months to eat a box of Quality Street, don't you?
Yeah, I'm one of those. I've still got Easter eggs left. I'm one of those people. It's a brilliantly complex role, isn't this? I mean, as an actor, it's a role that kind of requires vulnerability and intensity, but to be seductive, to be a leader. I mean, you must have just read the script and just gone yes, because it's a sort of a great challenge, but what I imagine is a really fun challenge for an actor.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It was funny for me because after sort of like 20 years of doing it, whatever, I was like, oh, this is a bit of a sort of like melting pot of things I've done before. So I've done quite a lot of fantasy. I've played quite a lot of sort of mistrustful people who sort of purport to have, charm and sort of like mystery to them or whatever. And I was like, I sort of know what all these things are individually, but to sort of throw them all in the pot and hope that the stew tastes good is like a whole different kind of challenge. And I've played a few of these characters in the recent past where you're kind of unsure about somebody and you're kind of like holding a secret back, from whoever's from the people watching. And I feel like that's a tricky game to play because people don't really like watching stuff where they're feeling like deceived or manipulated, but that's of course a part of what this character is doing. But then I love trying to bring the flip side of those things and trying to bring the humanity to it and trying to find the things that aren't necessarily immediately on the surface when not the first thing you think of on the page. Like you say, if you find a character who's really powerful in a world, what is it about him that what does he feel are his vulnerabilities? And if he's powerful, does that make him feel lonely? And if he's lonely, does that make him crave some kind of deep human connection, or does it make him kind of feel angry? Or it's those kind of questions. That's what I love so much about this job, is like kind of Rubik's cubing that all together.
I mean, do you think you could have played this role like you do now, kind of 10, 15 years ago? Because I guess when you have got so many complexities to a character, you bring so much of your life experiences into a part. And as someone who, I think we're sort of roughly the same age, kind of in our sort of mid-30s, yeah. I often think there's loads of things jobs I had and stuff I did when I was sort of 20, 21. I thought, God, if I did them now, it'd be so different. Is that the case for you as an actor?
Totally. I feel that way about every character I've ever played, really. You can only sort of do what you can do now with the person that you are now, in the situation you are now, almost some days, or even in the mood you're in now, and that's what I sort of say to people. If you have a frustrating day, you're like, you did your best given the day you were having. But I think particularly with this character, I think probably I could have done a version of it 10 years ago, with some of the same qualities to him, maybe, because I think some of it is like intrinsically me. You make up things on the day that sort of feel natural to you, and I think they probably would have felt natural to me all that time ago. But I think particularly for men, there's that sort of playing that sort of gravitas, playing that sort of authority of like the general of like in charge of the country. I don't think I would have taken myself seriously as that part of him. And I think, having done this for all these years gives me a confidence so that when you get all these brilliant actors for whom this is such a massive job, and, Jessie and Archie in particular coming and just being like, the kind of like fresh-faced sunshine, lovers, adventurers, soldiers, exactly like they are in real life, just absolutely no kind of nothing kind of weighing them down, except that kind of verve for life that they've both got in spades, because that reflects that's more where they're coming from. It's easier for me to have a bit more confidence and authority in front of that, feeling like I've done it for 20 years or whatever. So yeah, you definitely bring that to it. That's just a good question. No one's asked me that.
But because I mean, in the books, unlike kind of all other sort of leading roles that contribute to this story, we don't really see things from your character's perspective. Does that make it a bit of a blank canvas for you? Because I guess a lot of the other actors had to contend with the fact that the author has already got into their characters' heads. But I guess with you, you kind of had,
yeah. I liked the fact that we didn't see things from his perspective, because especially when a character is described as mysterious, it's difficult to preserve the mystery if you feel like you have access to every one of his thoughts. And I feel like it's also useful to sort of read about the effect that he has on people. Okay, so this is the reaction. I can kind of then work backwards and think, well, this is the face, the facade, the mask that I'm presenting in this moment to this person, but what he's really feeling inside is this. And I think if there's that tension between what he's feeling and what he's sort of putting out into the world as well, that's interesting to watch, is to watch someone wrestle with, right, I'm going to present an air of authority here, or I'm going to present an air of charm, or I'm going to present an air of, even sometimes I'm going to present a vulnerability to someone so they feel sorry for me, but actually I'm thinking about this, or actually I'm feeling, I'm torn because I'm feeling warmth towards this person, but I know I'm trying to get them to do something, that they might not want to do if they knew the whole truth. And then does he struggle with that or not? And so all of those questions sort of roll into that.
I mean, obviously, usually when I do junkets with people for TV series, it's the week or two leading up to the show being launched. But obviously now we've got this kind of benefit of knowing how well received this has been from fans and critics alike, obviously sort of right near the top of the Netflix charts and stuff. I mean, it must be so thrilled that it's been received in the way that it does. I mean, particularly because when you're dealing with something that comes with so much built-in fans already, I guess the key and the most important thing is always pleasing them. So you must be so thrilled that they've taken to it in the way that they have.
Yeah, I was actually less worried about them, because I knew that we were all kind of, we all read all the books in the run up to filming, and a lot of, almost every actor who came on board had read at least one book. And I think a lot of the crew even, and a lot of obviously, all the writers and everything. So we were fans of the world by the time we made it. So we were making a show. It was a show made by fans, really, because we couldn't stop talking about the books before we shot. And then when we were shooting, we shot about the scenes. And then when we all were binging it all together on our group chat, we were all talking about, the bits that we left out, or the bits got cut, or the bits that we were pleased with. So I wasn't so worried about the fans. It was everyone else that I was, my concern was, are they going to follow along? Are they going to be lured into the world? Are they going to find it that it transports them? Is it going to be escapist enough? And I think that's what's really thrilling for me, is that people who don't know anything about it as well can kind of just tune in and be whisked off to this other land where all these characters have this shared thread of trying to discover where it is that they really belong and where they fit in, and who they are. So it's a story about identity, really. And I think, it's fortunate coming off the year that we have. It's like, everyone's been kind of questioning where they fit in and where they belong, and all, and what's important to them. And I think to watch a show about people who are wrestling with that is it makes me really happy that that's the show we've made.
And one of the first films I was ever commissioned to write about when I first started this years and years ago was Killing Bono, which I really enjoyed. So I was sort of thinking about so looking at your sort of career, and I've realised you've obviously not done too many movies of late. But that's not to say you haven't been busy, because you've been doing some excellent work on TV. But I'm just wondering if you do have got hopes to kind of get back into film soon, and if you don't even feel necessarily these days that there is this kind of need to, because really the high production quality and value of TV series is
honestly, it's a combination of just, I did all films for about, a decade or something. And then, doing Westworld, it was like some of the greatest, actors in the world were doing that show. And it was so beautifully put together. It was just like, I don't think there was a sort of greater opportunity than that to kind of do what we do, and then going into like the Marvel universe on, you know, yes, it was on the TV, but it was just honestly gave me an opportunity to like explore a character that in a movie has the potential to come across as quite two-dimensional, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of really flesh them out. And that's what interests me about acting, is to present real people that people can kind of latch onto. And I love when I'm watching a TV show that I get to feel like I get to know these characters, and that I own a part of them, and that I get to see what they're up to anytime I choose to turn on the TV, you know. And I think that ownership is what's so interesting about television, rather than being presented to. But it's not to say I don't love still watching films and wouldn't still do them. I just think a lot of the ones that I've read over the last few years haven't been as intriguing to me as the TV stuff. But you know, I certainly will be getting back into it in between seasons of Shadow and Bone, hopefully, if it goes more.
I mentioned obviously the kind of high production value, and I mean Shadow and Bone looks incredible. I mean you've worked now in kind of really big budget kind of sets and stuff where audience members are transported to another world. I'm assuming even as an actor you are. How sort of far removed is that style of acting, or is it far removed from the kind of acting that you would kind of first begin with, be it stage work, be it drama school? Because I've been on set visits before, and you know you're sort of stood in a room when it's so kind of wildly different to what I guess would be what you might have done right at the start of your career. But is it something that takes a kind of new skill, or is it just a kind of extension of the skill set you already have?
Well, I kind of got thrown in at the deep end with the sort of fancy stuff, with like Stardust was my first film, so it was this incredibly detailed, fantastical kind of set. This marketplace that I walked through was the first scene I ever really shot for a film, and I was just walking around before we were shooting, just like gawping at everything, going, this is just unbelievable, look where I am. And Matthew Vaughn, who was the director of that film, actually stopped me and went, no, turn around, go back outside, back through that gate, because I need you to do that exact face you're doing in about 5 minutes, so don't look at any of this stuff. And then he just sort of followed me through looking at it. That was the first shot he did, because he wanted to get my sort of real reaction, which was actually really, really cool. I bumped into him, a few months ago, and I reminded him of that, and he was like, "Oh, that was good directing, wasn't it?" I think hearing sweet Jessie and lovely Archie talking about the base camp that you see in the show by the fold, the army camp, hearing them talk about how amazing it was to sort of read about it in the book and then see it there and sort of walk into it and feel like you belong as part of, feel like you're part of that story, reminded me of walking onto the Narnia set and the castle, which was like staggering to me. This must have had so many people over so many months crafting this thing, and I feel like I'm in a castle, and yet I know if I walk around the back of it, it's just bits of wood holding it up. And so I think it does require a suspension of disbelief, but they go to such lengths to make it feel incredible, and you start to feel like someone else. And I think that's the whole trick of it, isn't it? And sometimes on a stage, I think that can be probably more difficult, but I can't really speak to it with too much authority because I haven't done any stage acting in 10 years or so. But it's definitely different from just filming sort of in a kitchen somewhere.
My final question, because I've gone a bit over, was I know there's a sort of scene in the book where your character kisses Alina kind of unexpectedly, and in the series I was reading that they obviously changed that so that she kisses you unexpectedly. I just wondered if you think how important you think it is that we are willing as now in the arts and the kind of as we sort of trying to progress to take original content and kind of ensure that we do make little tweaks and update it to match a kind of changing world.
Yeah, I think it's I've often said it's really important to know why you're making the thing you're making now. And I think that this is a story about, like we just talked about, like identity and where you fit in the world and all of that stuff underneath it all. And I think that giving that character agency in a moment like that, whether you see it as still a manipulation of his or not, it doesn't necessarily take away any fault, it doesn't make him less problematic as a character, actually, because he's manipulated her into that situation. But it just shows that, you know, it actually gives her a more interesting path to then give herself something to blame herself for. And also, you know, even though she absolutely shouldn't, because she's been manipulated, but you know, there's something, you know, it just makes the dynamics more interesting. Plus it also feeds into like the questions of if things are, you know, things are more forgivable if you can understand someone's motives, or things are more forgivable if you can believe there's real feeling between two people or not. And I think it was important, the discussions I was contributing was, I actually don't think we need to answer these questions. It's not for us to answer. We're not the politicians and philosophers of the age. We're telling stories that ask questions, and I've always been interested in stories that ask questions rather than try to answer them. You know, he's still very much the villain of the story, but I think, you know, if you can make those dynamics feel more current and feel like they have more tension in them, and you know, I think that's the sort of responsible thing to do. And it was the similar reasoning behind making Alina's character half Shu, and that representation of racism in this world, and how it's sort of dealt with, and all of those kind of isms in this universe, to try and make them actually, in some cases, less palatable than they could be in source material, or in another version of it, so that they can be fed into a current conversation about things.
Yeah. I think it brings about a real kind of more nuance and layers to the dynamic between the characters. But my very final question is, of course, with Shadow and Bone, this is one of many, well, of a few books, which probably, well, definitely means more series. You must be looking forward and excited to getting started and taking this character even further into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually fascinated to see what they do with the character, because he's actually the character that is fleshed out the least going forward. He becomes quite representative of something just dark in her mind. And obviously, you know, gone to great lengths to make him a breathing human being in this world, and a real presence in the lives not only of Alina, like in the books, but, you know, he interacts with Mal, with Archie's character. He starts to interact with the crows as well. He's linked to the Nina stories, you know, and you know, the Genya story, and all of those other threads, which you could obviously with his mother, you know, the story with her as well. So there is sort of this time in between the books and in between the sentences in the books that you could definitely explore, and that would be, you know, there are some things like the Six of Crows books, I just want them to do it. I just want them to do exactly as it was on the page. And there are other things like, you know, particularly with my character, I think I'd be interested to see the scenes that are between the pages.
Well, I'm definitely, as soon as this interview is over, which is now, I'm going to go and finish. I'm honestly going to go and try and finish this series.
Got to watch number 5.
I mean, but I'm always behind. I only finished Breaking Bad about 4 months ago, so I'm just very slowly behind the public. But no, I'm going to go and finish it, because you've got me gripped, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. So thank you.
Thanks.
The series, and hopefully, yeah, you never know, by the time season 2 comes out, we can do something like this in person. Who knows?
Yeah, you might have finished season 1 by that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't promise that. All right, well, thanks so much for your time today, Ben. Much appreciated.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey